Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another race here in NRRL. Tonight we are here for the Wednesday Super League. My name is JP. I am your commentator. Alongside me in the commentary booth tonight is my brother Lewis. Good evening, Lewis. How are you?
I'm very good. This should be very interesting. Never commentated a race around Qatar. Never raced here either. So quite excited to see how this is in league racing.
It's definitely quite a fun circuit, and it's one of those circuits like a Jeddah where if you can hook a lap up, it's very, very satisfying. And for the cameras and for us in the commentary booth, looks absolutely incredible. We have 18 minutes of qualifying coming for you before we move to our, I believe it's a 36 lap Grand Prix around one of the newest circuits, if not the newest circuit, on the Formula One calendar. First came here in 2021, and it was Lewis Hamilton that won out that day. We've had, I believe, one or two races in NRRL around Qatar before, and of course, with any race in NRRL bringing massive amounts of action, Wiz Jokeys is the first car out on track tonight, and will look to be setting the pace and lighting the time screens up. But Lewis, obviously this is the big one. This is the Wednesday Super League, and with it being round 4, we're approaching that halfway mark in the season now. We know, 2 tiers in this league with 2 drivers' standings, 2 sets of points being awarded. How do you feel like a race like this is going to play on the drivers when we now know we are starting to creep towards the end of the season where the big points really do matter?
Well, you've got to make sure that you get through these races, which you may not know as well compared to tracks like Spa or Silverstone that tend to be on every racing league calendar. Qatar is one that will usually you'll do it just so that you can say that you've done every race. It's never really one that you see that gets picked every season. So it's just to make sure you get up to speed in qualifying. Maybe that first lap, that out lap is just learn the braking points. You've got to make sure that your lap is consistent, even at tracks where you're not the best. That is what makes champions, those who can still get decent results when you're not at your best. And I would expect that those at the front who have probably been practicing in the last week should know where they will be around and they'll be looking to do as well as they can.
Most certainly that. It's a difficult Grand Prix is Qatar, and it's a difficult qualifying. Obviously strict track limits here in NRRL, and track limits always playing a big factor in the league races, and that will be no different here tonight. The track limits very, very difficult around this circuit. Very easy to dip a wheel over the curb, to run the car wide with a little bit of understeer, and that's your lap done. Or in the Grand Prix, that's a penalty for you if you do it 3 times. Quite difficult to try and get a really fast lap hooked up, and you can see Wiz Jokeys here is just ahead of Josh, I believe, and Josh has caught him throughout the course of this lap, so we'll be getting a great tow down this main straight. He is immediately placed at the top of the standings ahead of Wiz Jokeys with a 22.4, over a second and a half quicker than Wiz Jokeys, and that definitely would have compromised Josh's lap as well, being stuck behind the rear wing of Wiz Jokeys for the entire final sector. Kevin Baker goes into second with a 23.8 as Race Chase goes fastest by 0.4 of a second with a 22.0. BP Ace now absolutely smashes that, as is the dominant Ferrari with a 21.4, goes 0.6 clear. And then we see Falca Warrior slot into fourth with a 22.7. Matt Connor then replaces him with a 22.6. We've now got a Haas crossing the line. I believe that's Mikey, who is just abandoning his lap, it would seem. We then have Saban go to the top of the timesheets with a 121.3, a tenth and a half quicker than BP Ace. And I mean, we saw these two battling it out under the lights last week in Vegas, Saban and BP Ace, giving it absolutely everything until Saban's crash, and then the safety car bringing BP Ace bad fortune. And missing out on the race win by half a tenth. And Lewis, if you were in that position, losing a race by half a tenth of a second, you're talking qualifying half a tenth of a second is probably pretty normal, but losing a race by almost a front wing's width, surely that plays in your mind.
Yes and no. It depends what kind of driver you would be, whether you are an optimist or you are the opposite of that, because you could flip the other way and say that you came that close to winning, so you can win. But then also you could say that it's very track specific and you might not be that quick at any other circuit. So play on your mind. Not too sure, but it would fill you with confidence, I think, knowing that you've taken it to the top or near enough the top, and you know that you can do that again. So I think whilst it'd be a disappointing moment to have not won, it would certainly have filled me with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And obviously, last time out, Matt Connor taking a maiden Grand Prix win in NRRL, currently 7th in the Aston Martin. But a great result for Matt, his first taste of the Victor's Champagne up on the podium in Vegas. Taking a gamble on the strategy, Vegas obviously known for its gambling, absolutely paid off for him. We're on board with Mikey, who is on his first proper flying lap of the session, and you can see the little tribute to Lewis Hamilton's dog Roscoe on his helmet this weekend. The Haas driver just making his way through the second sector now and looking very stable for him. I must say he's going to get a little bit of a slipstream from the car ahead. That's the McLaren of, I believe, Dan Lovett. As he just comes through now, this should all really be quite easily flat through all of these kinks. Maybe a little bit of a lift off here. Nope, completely flat for Mikey. Runs it very wide, very lucky to not invalidate there. But the Haas driver now round the final corner using absolutely all of the track he can on this lap. Runs out of ERS to the line, goes P4 with a 22.3. Good lap from Mikey, and BP Ace immediately back out to try and beat Saban. So BP Ace looking like a man possessed, immediately taking back to the track once more.
Very, very strong lap there. The top 4 or 5, not usually do we see that kind of second gap. Obviously, still 10 minutes to go, so you would expect that will come down. But I think if you're Mikey, I'll ask you this question as well. Even though you'd rather be pole position, I think he'll be fairly happy with being really anywhere in the top 5, top 6. As you know, we always say, his ability to cut his way through the field, second to none. Maybe a little bit more difficult to overtake at a circuit like this, but I think he definitely will go better, I would expect. But I don't think it'd be time to panic if you're in that Haas garage.
No, most certainly. And I mean, it is a very long run down to turn 1. I was saying it last night at Mexico in the Tuesday 50% division. Although it was Mikey that was on pole for Mexico, and he managed to somehow lead out of turn 1 out of Mexico, which I don't think has ever been done before in Formula 1 ever. But it's a long run down to turn 1. It's a good overtaking zone into turn 1. But it is a very difficult circuit to overtake at once the DRS is enabled. Because of the nature of this track, it's very, very high speed. There aren't many heavy braking zones. So it is really difficult to try and overtake. So qualifying can be very important. I think if you're anywhere in the sort of top 3, top 4, you're probably happy. Pole position maybe not ideal, as it is such a long run down to turn 1. But I'm sure if you are someone like Saban or BP Ace, if you do take pole position, that's only going to be a confidence booster, especially knowing how quick you have been. And, in BP Ace's case, the fact that he is leading the Tier 1 championship.
Very much so. I think 7th is maybe a little bit too far back for what he would like. I think he'd prefer that kind of 3rd, 4th, 5th. But I would still be stunned if he was to finish exactly or below where he started.
BP Ace with a mighty lap goes back to provisional pole. A 1 minute 20.9. The first man into the 1 minute 20. Saban immediately on a lap after that to try and respond. And we know how close these top two can be in qualifying. Only half a tenth separating them last week in Vegas. That was Saban's first race. And Saban is now a tenth and a half up through the first sector. So this is going to be a very good fight here in qualifying. You've also got Race Chase in there, who's only about half a second off of Saban. And this is a track where track evolution can most certainly help. With it being so high speed, you need the grip through the corners. And the final laps are truly going to make or break absolutely everyone's session. Most people in the pits now. We've got a few drivers on out laps. We're currently watching Saban, who's right behind his Red Bull teammate, who darts off the track to try and get out of the way. That was Meldrum. But has that maybe cost Saban a little bit of time being behind his teammate through the high-speed corners? He comes around the final corner now, sticks to the line. Is it going to be enough for provisional pole? It's not. It's very, very close. It was a 3.5 tenth improvement for him. But BP Ace, has he got his number?
So far, you would say probably, but as you say, the gap between them, not even a mistake's worth, less than that. So difficult to call, but with 6 to go, you'd expect both of them probably have something more in their locker, and this will go all the way down to the end.
Completely agreed. It's going to be a session that is truly told by the final laps. We're currently watching Meldrum, who is on his first flying lap of the session. Meldrum struggled a bit in recent weeks, but he is doing well to try and keep consistent and just keep knocking the races down. And that is the thing. Experience is such a big thing in Formula 1 and in league racing. Just building your confidence, getting to know your abilities, learning tracks, learning setups. And, you know, we've seen Meldrum come very good, taking back-to-back pole positions. I believe it was in the Sunday tier. He's not a slow driver at all, Meldrum. He may struggle around a track like this that is quite strict on the track limits. We know he is a bit of a magnet to track limit penalties. But Meldrum, he can definitely come good. And I'm sure, given the opportunity, he will definitely be up there if he can. Dan Lovett comes across the line to finish a flying lap. He was 4 tenths down on that lap, was Dan Lovett. Dan Lovett currently the Tier 2 champion. Oh no, he's not, sorry. It is Wiz Jokies who currently leads the Tier 2 championship. So, not horrible for Dan Lovett to be in 9th. He's got Rendog, Mr. Jabe, and Wiz Jokies ahead of him. And as far as I can see, no sign of Rendog or Mr. Jabe tonight. So if Dan Lovett can try and outscore the championship leader, that would definitely help his cause.
You would very much hope somebody that, as you say with Meldrum, is we know he's quick. Obviously can struggle in races with certain aspects, but we've seen his abilities in qualifying to take pole positions, and it is odd seeing him down there, stuck in a bit of a no man's land really. About 8 tenths in front of 15th, only 2 behind 13th, but then another 4 to 12th. Not really what we're used to seeing from him, so very much would hope that that can improve and he can be up there with the likes of Josh, Mikey, Dan, where we're used to seeing him.
Exactly that. Now, I don't believe there is anyone on a lap at the minute apart from Dinosaur. Everyone is in the pit lane apart from Kevin Baker, who's on an in lap, Dinosaur, and Josh, who's on an out lap. So this is going to be quite a chaotic end to qualifying as we see more cars trickling out of the pit lane now. We're on board with Dinosaur, the only man on a flying lap at the minute. Dinosaur has struggled in recent weeks for the Works Mercedes team. He will look to try and right that wrong here tonight in Qatar. So he comes through the final sector now. One more corner to go for the Mercedes man. Gets it turned in nicely. A little bit slow, but nothing too major. And he does come into the pits. So now we've got absolutely no one out on track apart from drivers on out laps. First driver to set their final lap will be Josh, who is just coming through the final corner now. But Lewis, I'm going to throw it to you for a prediction. As the drivers come out for their final laps, give me a prediction for the top three.
In order?
Yeah, let's go in order. Make it interesting.
Third, I will say Race Chase. Second, BP Ace. And pole position, Saban.
I'll have to be honest, I would have said the exact same thing. I think Saban has just looked a bit up on BP Ace. As much as BP Ace does have provisional pole position currently, BP Ace is coming out as one of the final cars. We see the two Mercedes guys coming out of the pit lane now. Only man in the pits is Falca Warrior. Josh invalidated his lap. And it's just, you don't really know where to look now, do you? We're on board with Race Chase, who is the only man in the top 4 to currently be on a lap. He is just coming through the second sector now. Was a little bit down through the first sector, so we'll need to have a mighty middle and final sector if he wants to try and challenge for pole position. He is improving, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough to try and get him onto the front row. The Sauber looks like it's working like an absolute treat, but is it going to be enough? The final sector has looked very, very quick on board with him as the Sauber comes to the line now. What sort of lap time is it going to be? It's a 21.5. It's a 0.2 improvement, but nowhere near the top 2. As we're now looking at I Have No Grip, who I believe didn't improve. Sidemen is just setting his lap now, doesn't improve, 0.3 down. Dan Lovett is on his lap, and it's just coming through the first sector. We're going to watch Saban, though, who is just making his way into turn 1. Needs about a 0.5 improvement, but the man he's fighting for pole, BP Ace, just going onto his lap as well. So this is it then, the qualifying showdown. The two drivers at the absolute pinnacle of their performance and motorsport, absolutely giving it everything, fighting it out. Saban just making his way through the second sector now. It was a purple first sector. BP Ace is 0.5 seconds up, where Saban was a 0.5 up, and you think that's a big gain. 0.5 up in the first sector for BP Ace. But is he taking too much life out of the tyres? Will it hold on in the final sector? Saban, a 0.5 up, as he now makes his way through the flat right-hander. Now to the penultimate corner. Again, fully flat, just a little bit of a downshift. This has been an incredible lap for Saban, but he won't know the improvement going on behind him. Saban now comes to the line. Can he take provisional pole? Yes, he can. It is a 1:20.7 for Saban. But now we look to BP Ace, who comes round the final corner, rides it over the curb. Is it BP Ace's day? It is not. He lost time in the middle and final sector. And I said exactly that. Had he left enough lap time and enough life in the tyres to be able to make it through the middle and final sector, he didn't, and it is Saban on pole from BP Ace in second. It is Race Chase in third, and what a session that was. And in the end, Saban held his cool and takes pole.
Very much, well, what we said would happen. I didn't quite think it would be by 0.2, but those two are level above the rest of the field.
So it is Saban on pole position from BP Ace. Race Chase in third with Meloon in fourth. Dan Lovett with a brilliant qualifying to put it in P5. It is I Have No Grip sixth with last week's race winner Matt Connor in seventh. Sidemen in eighth. Mikey Boy in ninth. You never see Mikey Boy in ninth. We've then got Josh, who's in 10th, Falca Warrior 11th, Kevin Baker 12th, with Jokies 13th, with Meldrum in 14th, and Sergeant Devsey in 15th, with Dinosaur in 16th. We will now look to the Drivers' Championships, where you can see BP Ace currently leading the Tier 1 Championship from Noah and Race Chase. It is then Michaela who is in 4th, Aspec in 5th, I Have No Grip in 6th, Bo 7th, with Sab Gaming in 8th, and Josh in 9th. As we look to the Tier 2 Championship, it is Wiz Jokies who currently leads from Mr. Jabe and Rendog. Dan Lovett will look to put a massive dent in that. Currently qualifying, 5th on the grid. And if he can outscore Wiz Jokies, he scores 25 points. That would be a big, big haul of points for Dan Lovett. He's quite a way behind Wiz Jokies, as you can see. But that would be a great way to try and kickstart the back end of the season for the McLaren driver. You can see the calendar here. We're currently on round 5 here in Qatar. Only 8 rounds this season, ending in Abu Dhabi. Next week we go to Singapore, followed by the Hungaroring in Hungary, and then we take to the Yas Marina circuit for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix under the lights for the season finale. Well, Lewis, that was quite the session, I must say. What are your predictions for the race then? Your first time Your first time commentating in Qatar. How do you think this one's going to pan out?
I think very much that top 2 will be fighting the whole race, as we've seen with how close they are. I would be shocked if anyone can get near them, because we've seen how close they have been already, and I would very much count on that being the same result this time around. The battle for third, I think, could be a lot more open, though.
Completely agreed. The battle for third was very, very close, and as much as, you might expect the top 2 to run away with it, this track, it's very hard to gain time because a lot of it is full throttle. So if they manage to break away, fair play to them. But I think the DRS is going to keep everyone very, very close. And with the top 2 battling, that's only going to drag them towards the pack behind. And we saw what happened with Saban last week. When placed under a little bit of pressure, he isn't immune to mistakes, Saban, and neither is BP Ace. And, we saw how the safety car shaped the race, and we've got people like Mikey Boy who will look to come back from a poor qualifying. Dan Lovett, obviously the highest tier 2 driver. Will he look to try and gain positions or just stay where he is? The race start, very important because it is such a long run down to turn 1. This is going to be a very difficult session for the drivers and a very exciting race for us in the commentary box.
Very much so. And if you're either one of those top 2, knowing how close you are with the other one, what is the mentality going through them at the minute to beat the other? Because with how close it is, just that one slight change to the setup that you are permitted could be the difference between 5-second victory or 3/10 P2. So it is a very, very tense scenario right now for them. Each little bit of fuel, the strategy, every decision matters.
Well, it's basically high-speed chess. You've got to think about so much. The real-life F1 drivers, you've got your team on the pit wall, and you've got the strategy guys back at the base. In Formula 1 League racing, you've got to do that all by yourself. But as the 5 red lights light up the grid here at Qatar, it is lights out and away we go. And that looks like a very good start from BP Ace, who looks to already be trying to challenge, and Race Chase already going to the outside line. 3 abreast into turn 1. BP Ace manages to get that position back. Dan Lovett looking around the outside of the Mercedes of Meloon as Race Chase with a brilliant start, but beginning to fall back as Meloon manages to get past. It's Dan Lovett in 5th with Sidemen in 6th, Matt Connor 7th, Mikey already up a place from 9th on the grid, and we see a lot of cars there going wheel to wheel through turn 4, I believe that is. Wiz Jokies managing to get his way up to P10, and we've got a spinner at the back, and that's Sergeant Devsey into the wall on the hard compound tyres. I don't believe there's any damage for the V-Carb driver, but Saban, with a perfect start, he was under a little bit of pressure into turn 1. Last of the late breakers, though, manages to make his way through, and besides Sergeant Devsey, everyone seems to be through nice and cleanly. And that is a good opening lap for the Red Bull.
It's very, very close to going 3 wide into turn 1 with the Sauber, Ferrari and the Red Bull. I think they all realised that that probably wasn't the smartest idea. They continue on. But for how long will BP Ace be wanting to sit behind the Red Bull? He's fairly close, but not close enough to make a move.
It's going to be very close between these two. We know that they are so close to each other's pace, and they are going to provide a brilliant race for us, no matter what track we're at, no matter where we are. Big gainers on the first lap. Dinosaur up 3 positions as we see Sergeant Devsey into the pit lane. Not much change, not as much change as we would usually see in an NRRL race on lap 1. We've got Dinosaur, who's up 3 places. Sidemen up 2. Wiz Jokies up 2. We've then got I Have No Grip with a horrible start, down 3 places. Falca Warrior down 4 places, and it looked for a bit like there was damage there, but I don't believe there is. Meldrum makes his way past Dinosaur for 13th place. But these two, BP Ace and Saban, very, very close to each other, and you can see the tyre strategy, both of them on the hard compound tyres. Then the rest of the top 8 all on mediums. Saban with a lot more battery than BP Ace. But BP Ace wanting to get on with this one, and he will have the DRS as we now barrel out of the final corner and towards turn 1. The DRS has been shortened this year, so it is going to be harder for the Ferrari to gain. He is gaining, but Saban, with a lot more battery, manages to stay ahead. Meloon is just falling off the back of that battle. He's got Race Chase right behind him. Sidemen manages to get past his teammate Dan Lovett for 5th. We've then got Matt Connor in 7th, right behind the 2 McLarens. Mikey is in that fight as well, looking to try and gain after a poor qualifying. Josh is behind them about 1.4 seconds on the hard compound tyres. I Have No Grip, Wiz Jokies and Kevin Baker also on the hards. Meldrum on the soft compound tyres, an inspired choice, but they will die very, very quickly, especially around a track like this, and he's round! He manages to just about hold it, but a little bit of a rear lock-up through there. A good save from Meldrum. He could have lost a lot more time than that. And the Red Bull driver struggling early on those soft compound tyres.
Not the ideal evening for the Red Bull so far. He's made up 1 position, and my position change thing isn't quite working the way it should. But from qualifying to the race has not been the evening Meldrum would have hoped for. Still got 26 laps to fix it. So keep your head down, get the car pointing in the right direction, and start getting some consistency, and results may come soon.
Saban almost looks about 2/10 quicker than BP Ace's. Race Chase manages to get through on Meloon with the DRS and take the final podium position for now. Both of those guys on the medium compound tyres. It was an easy move for Race Chase, but for BP Ace, I can sense a little bit of frustration in behind the Red Bull of Saban. You can see him trying to regain the battery. He's going to need a lot more battery because Saban, it almost looks like you need about a 3/4 gap. And BP Ace, he's hanging around the sort of 6/7 gap out at the final corner and not able to really get anywhere near the Red Bull driver. They are running away, though, I must say, from Race Chase. It is then Meloon right behind him. The two McLarens scrapping away. Dan Lovett just falling off the back of his teammate. Matt Connor is right behind Dan, trying to put some pressure on him. It's then Mikey who's there to try and collect any scraps or make an opportunist move. Josh has just fallen off of that battle. He's got I Have No Grip, who's just teetering on the edge of the DRS duct behind. Should be getting it though. Wiz Jokies has fallen off of that pack, and he's got Kevin Baker and Meldrum for company. But for Dan Lovett, I do think he'll be happy with this. He'll see his closest competitor, Wiz Jokies, down in 11th. And even if Matt Connor can try and get past here, he's using the overtake, not able to make a move down into turn 1. I do think Dan Lovett will be happy if he can outscore the Haas. Oh, Saban's off, sorry. Sorry to interrupt you, Lewis. I've just gone to Saban, and Saban is off of the road. So that promotes BP Ace through to the lead. And Saban still losing more places as Sidemen goes through. Meloon's gone through. It doesn't look like there's damage on the Red Bull. There isn't damage to the Red Bull. But what happened? I'm absolutely butchering my English here. What happened to Saban? Lap 5 of 29. The Red Bull driver looked to be leading very, very comfortably. And now it all goes pear-shaped. BP Ace now leads.
And this is where he's really got to cash in on that chip that he has just been afforded. 3.6 seconds. He's going to need and want to extend that gap just that little bit more whilst he has the time. But that, when you're talking about moments that can decide a world championship, that mistake there is one that is right at the very, very top.
Most certainly. That, and Saban ran nearly round again out of the final corner. We were on board with him. He looked so sure to be able to try and get back past Sidemen to go back up into 4th place. No traction out of the final corner. And Saban now down to 8th. What is going on with the Red Bull driver tonight? Under the lights in Las Vegas, and I mean on board with him, you can see there is just no traction whatsoever coming from those hard compound tyres. And this is such a traction orientated track where you need to have confidence, you need to have grip. And while BP Ace out in the lead, gaining away in the clean air with no pressure whatsoever, Saban struggling.
Mistakes you can't make if you want to win races and championships, and he leaves himself with a lot of work to do in the final 23 laps. He's got the time. Does he have the pace, and does he have the confidence? We'll have to wait and see.
It doesn't look like he's got the confidence at all. We know he's got the pace, but that car is looking very, very shaky under traction. And whether that's a bad setup choice or there's something wrong with the tyres or what's going on, I don't have a clue. Mikey makes an early dive into the pits, so that clears one car out of Saban's way. But the Red Bull driver, massive, massive mistakes. And that has cost him so much time and so many positions. And BP Ace will surely be smiling brighter than he ever has before underneath that visor, as he realises he is well within a brilliant chance of winning this Qatar Grand Prix now. Lap 7 of 29. And Saban really beginning to struggle, as he now picks up a 3-second penalty.
And BP Ace doing what we said, already extending that gap. 1 lap ago was 3.6, now 5.2. And he's doing exactly what he needs. And this is what makes a champion.
And what that does as well is it promotes Meloon into 2nd place, who I don't believe has had a podium in NRRL before, currently running in 2nd place. It's Race Chase who's in 3rd, Sidemen in 4th, Dan Lovett 5th, Matt Connor 6th, and Saban all over the back of the Red Bull driver, of the Aston Martin driver. No way through there, but with the DRS, we'll surely have a brilliant chance of trying to get through, as there's another car into the pits there. That's Sidemen, so that will be another car out of his way, and Saban just not gaining enough in a straight line on Matt Connor. They're both gaining on Dan Lovett, but nothing doing as he launches round the outside, trying to make the move on Matt Connor, but nothing doing. And Saban, frustration starting to creep in as you can see him trying to take different lines, braking very, very late into turn 1, trying to make the move stick, but currently down in 6th, and he would be 8th if it wasn't for pit stops. And while BP Ace leads by 5.7 seconds to Meloon, this race is really beginning to unfold.
And everyone here now seeing potentially a free hit for second place, with Saban, who just on board with him now, still struggling, running wide at certain sections of the track. Head still not in the game clearly. And I think Meloon, Race Chase, Dan, Matt all seeing a potential shot for second or third here.
Most certainly. I mean, Saban, you can just see on board with him. He is really struggling to just keep the car on the circuit as he runs wide again. And it just seems there's nothing he can do. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 1. That's for Falco Warrior, who is round. I believe there may have been contact with the wall as Meloon, Dan Lovett and Matt Connor all come into the pits. No damage for Falco Warrior. So that promotes Saban back up to third. But with the 3-second penalty and on the hard tyre strategy, we doubt we'll see him in the pits for a while. But maybe now in some clean air, he'll be able to try and put some laps down. But that is the key in these league races. You know, yes, it's lap 9, but there's still 20 laps to go of this Grand Prix. You just got to get your head back in it. Yes, you made a mistake. Yes, it's annoying. Yes, your rival's leading by nearly 6 seconds now. But you've just got to get your head back in the game. Sit back down, reevaluate your choices, and just move on. Because you can't go back now. You made the mistake, and that's that. You just need to settle into the rhythm that you were in qualifying and in the opening laps of this race that allowed you to lead for so long, and get back into that rhythm, because Saban is struggling.
You can't let it affect you, as you say. It is a big, big moment, but you've got to just calm down and realise the race isn't over yet. As Falco Warrior goes into the pit lane and retires. Not too sure what has caused that. And still on board with Saban here, just making those slight errors that it very much seems like the mistake has got to him. And you can't let that happen in races like this.
Exactly that, especially around a circuit like this where you do need confidence. You need to be able to lean on the car, and it's just not working for him. As we see Kevin Baker get past Wiz Jokies up into 5th place. Both of those guys have not pitted yet. And Wiz Jokies just falling a little bit back now. Meloon 11 seconds off of that as we see Mikey manage to get past Sidemen. Dan Lovett just a little bit off the back of that fight after being undercut. Undercut very, very powerful around this circuit. Saban is beginning to gain on Race Chase to try and get his way back into the DRS and in behind. But obviously with the 3-second penalty, he will struggle. And BP Ace just confidently leading out in front, doing everything he needs to do. But BP Ace is off! Just as we went on board with him, BP Ace off the circuit. And that's surely going to lose him a hell of a lot of time. He was about 7 seconds in the lead, and I really do not know what happened there to the Ferrari. It almost looked like he intentionally went off there. But the man that was leading now lost 5 seconds in time, and Saban has a great chance to get past Race Chase. He pulls to the inside of turn 1 and makes the move. And lap 11 could prove to be a crucial lap, as BP Ace, with a massive mistake, Saban managing to get past Race Chase and up into second. That could be crucial.
And I think it will do a lot of good for the mind of Saban, knowing that at certain corners now, he can see BP Ace. So now he has a visual target to work towards as well. I mean, you see here on board with him, he is just about able to see him. So now he can tell he's close. if he can just keep at him, he might be able to catch back up, and we might have round 2 between the top 2.
BPA saying in the chat that he had a wheel bug and that's what took him off track. I thought it looked very suspicious. It almost, in a way, looked intentional the way he drove off the track. But Zen, also known as BPA, saying that there was a bug with his wheel. And for the Ferrari driver's sake, we've got to hope that something like that doesn't happen again as we see a yellow flag. That's Kevin Baker, who's gone round in the middle sector, losing about 5 seconds. He was in the fight with Wiz Jokies, Mikey, Meloon, and Sidemen. That pack now gaining on him. Meloon right behind the rear wing of the Haas driver of Mikey. And Mikey, I must say, this is one of the more difficult weekends that I've ever seen Mikey have.
Definitely quite a quiet one. We're not used to seeing him. Normally he's around that kind of top 5 and in 7th at the minute. Well, now up into 6th as I've said that. But 6 seconds off with a penalty. Clearly something not working for the Haas. Is there a way he can revive his race? You would certainly hope so. But at the minute, doesn't look to be working out the way he wanted.
Very, very close between Meloon and Kevin Baker, and there is massive contact between the pair of them and damage for the Mercedes driver who's looking to get a maiden podium in NRRL. Now has Sidemen on the outside of him. Sidemen looking to make 2 moves in the same amount of corners, going around the outside of Kevin Baker. Now there's even more contact between the trio, and Kevin Baker is sent round. So after almost 5-6 corners, wheel to wheel, Kevin Baker eventually loses out. Sidemen gets past. Meloon picks up damage. And this race now really being thrown up as Race Chase comes into the pits for his first pit stop of the race. BP Ace and Saban stay out, and Saban is beginning to gain as we now see a yellow flag, and that's Dinosaur that's off the track and into the gravel. And we can see how far off the track he is. The Mercedes driver, he's managed to keep the engine running and manages to get back onto the circuit. And Race Chase now just coming out of the pit lane, filters in just behind this battle of Dan Lovett, Meloon, Sidemen. Mikey Boy has managed to gain away from that pack a little bit. And Race Chase will be praying that he doesn't get stuck in a DRS train, as we've got another yellow flag. That's for Dinosaur again, going very, very slowly through the final sector. And I wonder if we'll see the Mercedes driver into the pits at the end of this lap to retire the car, as he now is lapped by BPA and by Saban. Through goes the V-carb of Sergeant Devsey as well, right on the back of him, and Dinosaur off of the track, going through the styrofoam boards. And I would have to imagine the Mercedes driver will be in, and he is in at the end of this lap. And I wonder if that is a retirement as he comes through into the pit lane now. Doesn't look like a retirement as we see BP Ace into the pits, and Dinosaur does retire. So Saban staying out, and we know that the undercut can be crucial around a track like this. And is BP Ace going to be able to get out ahead of Wiz Jokies though? We're on board with the Haas. It's going to be very, very close between them. And luckily for BP Ace, picking the perfect time to come into the pit lane, manages to get out ahead of 3rd place, and will have massive clean air to try and race on into to make this undercut work as powerfully as possible. It is I Have No Grip in 2nd, with Saban leading, both of them yet to pit in this Qatar Grand Prix. But the question is, when Saban pits, where will he come out? Because you would imagine it will be behind BP Ace, who was ahead of him and is undercutting. With Jokies and Mikey right next to each other, you'd imagine he would probably come out in about 5th or 6th.
21.5 seconds he has at the minute. That I don't believe that would be enough to come out in front of BPS, but he will obviously not know how big that gap is. I don't believe. Actually, he might do actually.
I
I
have
would
no
expect so,
grip.
yeah.
Comes into the pit lane. Saban continues on for another lap, and BP Ace easily managing to undercut the Alpine. Running a very cool race is I have no grip so far. Good strategy from him. And you would imagine he will filter out just sort of around Josh, behind Josh in 10th place. But with much fresher medium tyres as well, he will look to try and gain ahead. BP Ace also on the mediums. Mikey and Wiz Jokies. Wiz Jokies, one of two men to have not pitted yet. The other man being Kevin Baker, currently down in 11th. And Wiz Jokies now with the pack of Sidemen, Meloon, Dan Lovett, Race Chase and Josh all over the back of him. And you would imagine we'll see the Haas driver in very, very soon. Mikey takes over in third place for now, but you would imagine once they clear his teammate, they will begin to gain towards him.
Still no pit from Saban on those hards, so obviously playing the longer game. BPA's 18.9 behind, so he will emerge in front of him. Or BPA's will be in front of him, sorry. Fastest lap as well. Everything going about as smoothly as you'd want for BPS.
Wiz Jokies dives into the pit lane, and you would imagine Kevin Baker will be in very soon, as well as Sidemen manages to get past Meloon up into fourth. Dan Lovett right behind the Mercedes driver. We know struggling with damage is the Mercedes, but doing well to hold his nerve for now. I would imagine Mikey will probably have to pit again, so that will take him out of it. Saban, as long as he stays out, he will only fall further behind. And we saw him struggling in the dirty air. He's picked up the pace since he's been in clean air. But in the dirty air, the Red Bull did struggle, and we saw him make mistakes. And he's got a puncture! The race leader with a front left puncture!
Wow.
And off into the gravel, trying to stay out for as long as he could to extend the tyre delta. And Saban, a bad race going as bad as it can. Saban into the pits with a front left puncture. Incredible stuff. So BPA's will come out miles clear of the Red Bull driver as he comes in to get serviced now for the medium compound tyres. But that was big time loss. As he went off the track in turn one, Mikey goes through, Sidemen goes through, Meloon goes through, Dan Lovett goes through, Race Chase goes through, Josh goes through. Saban's going to come out in 8th place here. And I have no grip on the warmer medium tyres. Isn't that far off him? Saban really struggling under the lights in Qatar tonight. We know this is a very, very hot temperature and a hot Grand Prix to come to. Well, it's getting almost fiery in Saban's cockpit, as you can imagine the frustration he's going through. The Red Bull driver looking to rescue his race by overcutting as much as he can, but a front left puncture sending him off at the final corner. And you look at the gap to leader now, 19 seconds.
Everything, as you say, just backfiring for him. Nothing really has worked out since that pole position. And 12 laps to go. He has a lot of overtaking to do if he wants to get himself up into the positions that he really should be on pace.
Exactly that. Mikey has quite the large gap in P2, but like I say, I would imagine he will be into the pit lane again. Sidemen, you would also imagine he will be in the pit lane again. Dan Lovett is really under pressure here from Race Chase as we race towards turn 1. The McLaren driver managing to defend. Meloon comes into the pits, does not change the front wing, interestingly enough. So that's an interesting strategy. Josh is currently in that train. Saban just gaining up to the back of this train now. But it's going to be difficult for him to overtake. You've got Dan Lovett leading the train from Race Chase and Josh. That will be a 4-car train. And it's not easy to overtake around here, especially when you're in a DRS train. Saban is gaining the time, but will he be able to gain the positions?
Be very, very difficult, as we've said before, how painful, as you say, DRS trains can be. And it very much looks like we have one being formed with 3 of our best drivers in front of him. So it's not going to be easy work for him, but if there's one person that can on the pace that he has, it is Saban. He just needs to be careful, don't try anything rash, and he can get himself to the front of this queue.
Most certainly that, and Josh does look to be struggling as we see Dan Lovett now come into the pit lane. That gets rid of 1 car for him. Is Saban able to get past Josh with the straight line speed? It doesn't look like he's got the pace. He makes a massive dive down the inside, and that was very, very late from the Red Bull driver, but manages to get through a beautiful move at turn 1. Now his next target will be Race Chase, but I wouldn't be surprised if this one will be a little bit harder, because 6-lap-old hards for Race Chase, they will be feeling good. 2-lap-old mediums for Saban, they'll be feeling great, but with the penalty that Saban's got, he's technically 21 seconds behind the race leader and has 10 laps to try and gain it.
He can end up with second here. I don't quite think that's... I think it's quite obvious who the winner is going to be, unless there is one final change, but he could definitely nick second place.
And exactly that is what he's done. He took second place away from Race Chase in the middle sector and is immediately gaining away from him. Race Chase will get the DRS, but nearly a second behind. You would imagine no chance of getting back past the Red Bull driver, even with the ERS and the DRS enabled. And Saban now 18 seconds behind the race leader. Josh dives into the pit lane for a fresh set of tyres. And Saban, it will be a good recovery, but after being on pole position and leading for the first 5 laps of this Grand Prix, I'm sure he will not be happy finishing this far off of BP Ace.
But there's not really anything he can be angry at other than himself. It's completely self-inflicted.
Exactly that. Those mistakes, you know, staying out for as long as he did on the hard compound tyres, completely his choice. And those mistakes that he made on lap 5, they did look to be driver error. So as much as a second place is still good and will gain him valuable points in the World Championship, I don't imagine he's going to be the happiest driver in the world as BP Ace comes into the pits. Only 6 laps on the medium tyres and the Ferrari into the pit lane for a new set of mediums. And you would imagine, most certainly, coming out behind Saban, this is a very interesting choice from the race leader. Saban does take the lead of the race. Race Chase also goes through. The Alpine of I Have No Grip is also gaining and takes the position as BP Ace very slow out of the pit lane. I can't wrap my head around this one.
Maybe the tyres weren't at as low as he would have wanted, and there was a potential risk of a puncture, but with how far in front he was, he didn't need to push. That does not make sense to me.
I'm very, very confused by this strategy from BP Ace, because the time he's going to gain by being on 4-lap fresher tyres won't be an incredibly large amount. So it's very interesting to see what's going on there from BP Ace. 1.3 seconds behind I Have No Grip, and not really gaining much time. He's 10 seconds off the lead, technically 7 seconds off the lead, as we see I Have No Grip retire, and a safety car is called. And I
Wow.
believe that would be for Matt Connor, who DNF'd. And that's really going to help BP Ace. But I still don't understand the strategy.
Might give him one last lifeline. But will there be enough time for it? I'm not too sure.
Well, you would imagine Saban surely will be able to come into the pits. And with the amount of laps that this safety car is going to take to get everyone bunched up back together, the soft compound tyres will be the best compound to go on. So Saban will be on new softs, you would imagine. BP Ace on new mediums. Saban's back in the fight for the win with this one.
That last lifeline. Can he use it to get him what he will probably think is what he's earned?
This is a very, very interesting race. And I mean, I called it in qualifying. It's like a game of high-speed chess. And that is exactly what this race has been. The interesting thing is, will BP Ace come out ahead of Saban in the pits? You would imagine the answer to that question will be yes, as Saban does come in to the pit lane, as does Race Chase. Now, what tyres does Saban go onto? It's the mediums. I think that's a missed opportunity. Race Chase comes down the pit lane now. He is going on to the softs. So Race Chase, maybe a late charge from him as he goes on to the tyres that I most certainly would have gone on to. Mikey is also coming into the pit lane, as is Sidemen. I Have No Grip came into the pits at the end of the last lap to go onto soft compound tyres. And this has all been thrown up in the air.
So what happens next then? 6 laps, 3 drivers, or you could even extend that down to 4 with I Have No Grip. Josh, I would think, with that amount of penalties, a little bit out of range. But you just can't call this, can you?
It's absolutely impossible to call this one. You just don't know what's going to happen. That is the thing about NRRL. You know, we've been commentating this league for what, 2-3 months now? And every race is unpredictable, no matter what way you look at it. But the ending to this race is going to be absolutely brilliant. And that is one thing you always know for sure. BP Ace will lead from Saban and Race Chase. And I think the driver to watch under this start is going to be Race Chase, who is on the soft compound tyres right behind the leaders. And you've got to remember that Saban has got to gain 3 seconds away from the cars behind, because with that penalty, he will fall behind.
He's got to get through as quick as possible, like you say. He can't take really any risks. He has to just go for it from the start and hope that Race Chase can provide him somewhat of an assist, but he'll be thinking more about doing it himself. But you would have to say the advantage at the minute lies with BP Ace.
It is very, very confusing, the entire strategy of this race, and absolutely all of it has come down to essentially nothing. Because this late safety car absolutely bringing it to the brink of what is going on. BP Ace will lead from Saban and Race Chase. I Have No Grip in 4th with Josh in 5th. Mikey in 6th with Sidemen in 7th with Jokies 8th with Dan Lovett in 9th. Meloon in 10th. Kevin Baker 11th with Meldrum 12th and Sergeant Devsey 13th with Matt Connor, Dinosaur and Falcon Warrior all failing to see the flag tonight.
So what does Saban do? We've already said what he has to do. What is going on in his mind then?
It is going to be an incredibly interesting end to this race. As all the cars start to form up now, you would imagine the safety car will be in very, very soon, if not this lap, next lap. And it's going to be difficult to see and difficult to predict. As we come through the final sector now, will the safety car be in this lap? Not Kevin Baker, sorry. Or is it Kevin Baker? Yes, Kevin Baker is the last driver that will need to form up. And coming through the final corner now, it does look like it will be in next lap. So there will be what? We'll move on to lap 25. It will be lap 26. 3 laps of racing.
So Race Chase, I'm going to ask you this question here. Race Chase sitting in 3rd. Top 2 have been pretty much a distance from you the whole race. Do you believe you can go and win this?
Most certainly. I mean, on the soft compound tyres, they're not going to be worn at all. I think he's got a brilliant opportunity to win this Grand Prix. And on the soft compound tyres, I would have all the confidence in the world. He's got nothing to lose. He is tier 1. He's the same tier as these guys. It's not like he can just happily sit behind and take a win in tier 2. Race Chase, with nothing to lose, everything to gain, surely has to go for it.
I'd have to agree there.
Kevin Baker has formed up at the back, and now we just await the safety car restart on board with BP Ace, just trying to get some last minute heat into those medium compound tyres. 2 laps the difference between BP Ace and Saban's tyres. 3-second penalty for Saban. Race Chase behind on the softs. And the safety car is in this lap. As Bernd Meyerlander's Aston Martin safety car races through the final couple of corners and makes its way towards the pit lane. Now the question is, when will BP Ace go? And will Saban and Race Chase be able to follow in behind? As we exit the final corner now. And he's gone very, very early. And Saban is with him. Race Chase a little bit further behind. And Josh with a great safety car restart. Already looking to get up into 4th behind I Have No Grip. As down into turn 1 we go. Late braking move for the Williams. I Have No Grip. Tries the switch back. Manages to get good traction. Josh up into 4th. And Mikey squeezes his way through into 5th place. I Have No Grip, now wheel to wheel with Sidemen, who's looking to get past him, and does so. I Have No Grip with a horrible safety car restart, down from 4th all the way to 7th.
And Race Chase still sticking with them. just in case anything was to kick off in the final few laps, but not really working the way he'd want right now. In an ideal scenario for him, Saban gets in front, holds Ace up, but I still think he'd be satisfied with third. But when the win is that close to you, he will be thinking he can go and take this, as we've said.
BP Ace giving it absolutely everything to try and get a second ahead, and is nearly there, but Saban is sticking with him. And like you say, Lewis, Race Chase right in there with him as well, as Mikey pulls out to the inside of Josh. Round the final corner we go. Haas versus Williams. Now we race to turn one. Both of them wheel to wheel. It looks like Josh has got better straight line speed and better battery. Manages to hold the position, and now Sidemen's getting involved as we're 3 abreast into turn one here. Josh manages to make it out in 4th place. Sidemen takes the position away from Mikey, who is fighting back, and this is very, very close between the two of them. Mikey, stark defense of that 5th place, who once looked the aggressor, now looks to be defending for his life as Sidemen tries to gain back. Mikey holds on to 5th, Josh holds on to 4th, and Race Chase just a little bit further behind than he would like. BP Ace is leading, but for Saban, with that 3-second penalty, that is going to cost him, because Race Chase is 7/10 behind.
And Saban is on at the moment to keep that podium, but not enough to keep that 2nd place, as Race Chase, as we said, sticking with them quite well for him. But this must be incredibly frustrating, knowing that nothing is really happening.
Exactly that, and he is just falling a little bit off the back of them now, and Saban is very, very close behind BP Ace, and neither of them with really any battery. Saban sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Here we go to turn one then. Saban pulls out to the outside, looks for a late braking move. More grip for BP Ace as we're 3 wide into turn one once again between Sidemen Mikey and Josh. Josh loses both positions. Sidemen up to 4th, Mikey up to 5th, and now they're wheel to wheel once more, the Haas and the McLaren. On the outside is the Haas, on the inside is Sidemen, and Mikey round the outside. Lovely opportunist move. Ever the opportunist is Mikey. Through into 4th place. Sidemen down to 5th, Josh down to 6th, and now Meloon is getting involved in 7th. I have no grip right behind them in 8th. This is beautiful racing as Saban is right behind BP Ace now. And BP Ace off of the circuit. So we've seen that BP Ace is having some wheel issues. Is that costing him here tonight? Because it's now only a 10th gap. Race Chase is right in there with them as well. This race is far from over as we are 2 corners away from the final lap of the Grand Prix and the Red Bull drawing ever closer. As towards turn one now we race. To the outside goes the Red Bull. He's got the DRS, he's got the ERS, and through goes Saban into the lead as we start the final lap of this race now. He does have the 3-second penalty, so it is going to be difficult for him to pull away. But one issue for the wheel on the Ferrari, and that's it.
But he's not going to have enough time.
This has been an electric race all throughout. Saban, BP Ace providing incredible action at the front. Race Chase in there with them. Sidemen Mikey Boy and Josh. Brilliant battling between the 3 of them. You also had Meloon and I Have No Grip in there. You've got Dan Lovett who's managed to get his way past Wiz Jokies. Saban has made the ultimate comeback with some help from the safety car and will manage to win this race on track. But for BP Ace, it is going to be, I believe, a 3rd race win in a row. And BP Ace will take a trio of Grand Prix wins. He is the championship leader and will extend that lead under the lights in Qatar tonight. Saban wins on track, But the Qatar Grand Prix goes to BP Ace. It is Race Chase who finishes in second after a brilliant performance from the Sauber driver. Saban comes home to take third after a good comeback, being down in 10th at one point. Meloon comes home for fourth with Mikey in fifth. Dan Lovett finishes sixth with Wiz Jokies in with I Have No Grip, in seventh. Wiz Jokies in eighth, and there must have been contact late on between Sidemen and Josh as they finished down in 10th and 11th. Meldrum in 12th with Sergeant Debsey in 13th, with Matt Connor, Dinosaur and Falca Warrior failing to reach the flag. But what a day for Ferrari, what a day for BP Ace. When wheel issues were plaguing him, he comes out on top.
And that is the mark of good drivers winning races when you have slight issues, but great drivers win races when you have issues and fast competition, and he's done just that.
Absolutely incredible stuff from the Ferrari driver, and what a race we have just witnessed. The Qatar Grand Prix goes to BP Ace and Ferrari. It is Race Chase who finishes in second, Saban in third with the fastest lap. Meloon finishes in fourth with Mikey in fifth. Dan Lovett sixth, taking a big haul of points in the Tier 2 Championship. I Have No Grip finishes in seventh for Alpine with Wiz Jokies in eighth and Kevin Baker in ninth. Sidemen 10th with Josh in 11th, Meldrum 12th and Sergeant Devsey in 13th with Matt Connor 14th, Dinosaur 15th and Falca Warrior 16th, with the bottom three failing to reach the flag. Well, what a race that was, and the Super League now kicks off the final leg of the season. My name has been JP, I've been your commentator, alongside me has been Lewis. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you on